Oh god. Okay. Ashes of Creation. Here we go. All right. I'll close the game for now. All right. Make sure I get this working. There it is. All right. Yo, what up? Okay, so this is something people want me to watch for a few days. So Lazy P on video about Ashes of Creation. Obviously, you know, like I played the alpha. You know, I had the Allcraft with Steven. I brought him on my stream, talked to him about the game, like pretty much the day that I discovered it. So obviously there hasn't really been a lot of conversation about Ashes of Creation other than the monthly updates, right? Which I think makes sense. I don't know if we have a date for like the second alpha or the second beta, but we're gonna find out. Here we go. Let's go ahead and watch this this video and see what he's got to say about it. Here we go. All right.
It's been just over 2 years since I made that big overview video for Ashes of Creation. 2.6 million views, the hype train's still rolling.
I watched that
and
one
2
too.
years worth of development updates later, I decided to make an updated version of that video. So grab a cup of tea, sit back and relax whilst I explain to you why Ashes of Creation is still, by far, the most exciting upcoming MMORPG. This video has no sponsor and took a solid 40 hours of writing, recording and editing. So if you'd like to support my work and plan on playing Ashes when it releases, then click my referral link in the description below or use my code to create an account.
I don't even have one, actually. Probably set one of those
Ashes
up.
of Creation is the biggest upcoming Western MMORPG in terms of scope, hoping to provide fans of PvP, PvE and roleplay content an ever-changing virtual world in which the progression of each server is completely different and dependent on the actions of the player base.
One thing you have to understand is like the main guy that like runs this game, his name's Steven, and he, you know, he does like, you guys probably know who he is if you see a picture of him. He, like, the main games, like, I hear him talking about a lot that he played was, like, Lineage and Arcade, just, like, to contextualize some of the philosophy and insight that's going into this game.
Ashes started development back in 2016 in Unreal Engine 4, however at the end of 2021 upgraded its engine to Unreal 5 to make use of the latest advancements in gaming tech such as Nanite, Lumen, and a more efficient development pipeline. In terms of funding, the game was successfully kickstarted in 2017, however the vast majority of the game's funding comes from creative director Steven Sharif, a successful entrepreneur who, like most of us, has been a lifelong MMO fan that was unhappy with the current state of the MMO genre.
I love that, man. Like he said, you know what? I'm fucking sick of this shit. I'm sick of these fucking these games being bad. I'm just gonna do my own game. I love it, man. I do.
Ashes of Creation is fully funded to completion, and despite offering paid access to alpha and beta tests, is not reliant on these funds to finish development.
I remember that $15 sub, no box cost, and no pay to win. So that's the monetization option or monetization structure of Ashes of Creation. They're already selling cosmetics for the game, so cosmetic sales are important, but Steven has vocalized concerns that a lot of people have had about the the cosmetics in the shop being better than the ones in the game, and he has said that that's not what's going to happen in the game. So that's pretty much where it's at.
This game will have 0 pay to win, a cosmetic only cash shop with no convenience items, and a $15 per month subscription fee business model with no
it would be really great. I don't know if this is possible. I have no idea, but it would be really great if you could play the game like on effectively a free trial. Like, I think that's one of the biggest advantages that, like, nobody really talks about. I mean, I say that, but, like, that's, like, the meme with Final Fantasy. Is, like, have you heard about the fucking, the whatever the hell it is. The having a big free trial and being able to play the game without paying money into it and get invested into it initially is, like, super important. And the fact is, like, in the market now, every game is free to play. Every game you can get into for free. And I think WoW is one of the exceptions, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's losing players, is because a lot of people are just like, they don't want to put the money, they don't want to invest into the game. They want to just try it out and then decide if they want to invest, because that's what every other game is. So I think it's very important to have a free trial. You have the video on, I don't know why this keeps happening. There we go.
Box cost. MMOs can usually be put into 3 categories: sandbox, theme park, or sand park. An example of a theme park MMO would be Final Fantasy XIV or WoW, an on-rails story-driven experience with a lot of scripted instanced content, heavily reliant on developers constantly adding new raids, dungeons, and gear treadmill content to keep people playing. An example of a sandbox MMO would be EVE Online, a game that's almost entirely player-driven. You need to create your own goals and find your place within a player-driven ecosystem, typically joining alliances or guilds to take over land and control resources.
Basically, like,
these games are less reliant on developer-created content, as the interaction between players is the content, and it's
I've said that before, is that that's one of the big reasons why a server like Moonguard is more resistant to content droughts in WoW. Is because those people, part of, like, the content that they get out of the game is not driven by the release schedule of Blizzard Entertainment. It's driven by what's happening on the server, what the players are doing, etc. So, like, you have another level of investment there. It can be. Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, nothing is for sure ever.
Every time. A sand park MMO is basically a hybrid of theme park and sandbox. There's a lot of player-driven content, however there's also developer-created scripted encounters such as raids and dungeons. This is the category of MMO that Ashes of Creation falls into, and personally it's my favourite type of MMORPG.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that you need to have instances, or you're just not going to have any challenging content for people that like that kind of stuff. MMOs can't make everybody happy, but they do have to at least think about making different genres of players happy. Like, people that like let's see, they like raids, or people that like PvP. You should try to make all of those general groups of players happy, because I think they exist in every MMO. It makes sense, so I think this is a smart way to handle it. But having, like, really strong, like, great outdoor content, you know what else was kind of more of a sand park, if we want to use this word that Lazy Peon is using, sand park MMORPG, was Classic WoW. Classic WoW absolutely had a ton of world content. It had a ton of open world stuff that players could do, things that they could influence in the world and control, like Devil Star Mafia, fucking like world buff meta, etc. So I think that was a positive thing. Now, obviously, there was a lot of friction that created, but I think that a more refined version of that could still be extremely popular now.
So what makes Ashes of Creation unique? How does this game innovate to push the genre forwards?
Let's see.
And why should you be excited for this MMO over all the others that have released and failed over the past 15 years?
The node system. This is controlling
Ashes of Creation's
areas.
biggest innovation, in my opinion, is its node system.
I'll just let
and
him
it's
explain
this
it.
system that ensures that no two servers will ever be the same. Basically, when the game launches, the world will be empty. However, over time, camps, villages, towns, cities, and sprawling metropolises will pop up in locations where players earn XP from killing.
What I'm concerned about is that once one type of node is discovered that is the most rewarding in some sort of like very deliberate way, like it gives you more damage or it gives you more X or like health or something like that, or more healing, everybody is going to have everybody at that node. And I think you can use a parallel to this with like New World. And you guys remember in the beta, whenever I said, like, this is stupid with the auction houses and controlling things, because the people that control fucking, not Morrowind, what's it called again? Morningdale. The control Morningdale are making 5% of the money that the people are making in Everfall and Windsward, because those are the main towns that everybody is at. And if you go to, it's not Morrowind, but if you go to every server is pretty much the exact same, because these locations are the most advantageous geographically. They're in the middle. There's the least amount of travel time to the other zones from that zone. And I think also that's where new players are. And so that's where older players go, because they want to be able to sell their stuff at that point. And so it just ends up being everybody goes to this one place. So I worry about the node system becoming formulaic, because the way that people play video games now is that as soon as they see what the meta is, everybody's playing the meta. And you guys saw me do that just a few minutes ago whenever I was doing the Tower Fantasy thing, and I was looking at like, okay, well, every other guy uses this, I'm going to use this too. That's metagaming. And I'm thinking, how many people are going to look at the maps of these good servers and be like, well, this server's doing this, so we should do that too. Or this streamer's doing this, so we're going to do that too. I think it's very common, and it's one of the biggest concerns that I have for the node system, but I do think that it has a lot of possibilities, and the idea behind it is really interesting and cool. And I think also the fact that metagaming could exist does not mean that they should not do the node system. It just means that they need to rebalance the nodes regularly to change up the meta, basically. And that's what every game effectively does. They buff and nerf weapons, they buff and nerf classes, they buff and nerf champions, and that way it keeps the game evolving, but you can't expect the player base to do that on their own. You have to give them a little bit of a boot.
Mobs, gathering, or doing quests. There will be over 100 nodes scattered throughout the world at launch, and each node will have a different layout and appearance depending on the race that contributed the most XP to it, as well as the buildings the mayor decides to place. So
right. It's like if we look at this map, like what are going to be the valuable nodes? I'm going to assume it's like in real life. Like, think about all of the most, like, the richest countries and, like, the richest states in, like, the old world. You look at, like, a lot of the places, like, you look at Constantinople, like, almost all of the European countries that are incredibly popular and incredibly wealthy had ports. That's right. They had access to water. And I think that's going to be a tremendous thing. So I'm thinking, like, things like this, maybe one like this here, like these here are going to be extremely valuable. How is it that you're going to make this node valuable? How are you going to make that node valuable? Maybe there's a dragon on it if you level it all the way up, so you have in-game players going over there. I think that you really, really, really need to make sure this goes right. And I think that the way you do that, I mean, the unfortunate reality is you do it with trial and error. You bring out the game, and then you see the nodes that nobody is leveling up. And of course you can predict a lot of it, but you'll never be able to predict all of it. And then you have to change it dynamically. And so this is something that is very promising, but it's also something that has to be a promise to continue to invest in.
have a different layout and appearance depending on the race that contributed the most XP to it, as well as the buildings the mayor decides to place. So if, for example, orc players contributed the most XP to a node, the node will then have an orcish aesthetic. The same is true for every other race in the game, and these racial aesthetic changes are applied to the node every time it's leveled up.
See, like, that's another concern that I have, because, like, if you look at in Final Fantasy, for example, Hrothgar are extremely unpopular, even if you only look at the male Hrothgar. If you take a poll of like 100 Final Fantasy characters, I would assume less than 10 are Hrothgar. I think it the same way, if you look at in WoW, there are probably, I don't know, like, let me think. I think WoW probably has a better breakdown of races. But I think also if you add races later on, or some people think that certain races don't look that good, etc., you're not going to have as many of them. I think that's the truth even with classes. So it's important to make sure all the races are appealing equally. Yeah, Worgen, there's not that many Worgen, but they got added later on in the game, and so that's why I didn't want to compare them.
So a town could start with an elven aesthetic, but if dwarves contributed the most XP to progress it to the city stage, it would then change to a dwarven theme. So what happens when every node in the game is leveled to max?
The thing is, like, that's cool, though. Like, again, like, these are all concerns that I have, but I think that they're cool regardless.
Well, that can't happen. Building up one node to a city, for example, will lock out adjacent nodes from reaching the same level, which in turn also locks or unlocks various quests, dungeons, or bosses. Players will have to initiate node sieges to de-level a node if they wish to progress adjacent nodes. Nodes come in 4 different node types: militaristic, scientific, divine, or economic, each of which have their own special perks, adding further variety into this system. Like I said, the node system is designed so that no 2 servers will be the same. If you take a break from the game for a few months, you could come back and the location of all major cities is completely different. Different taxes, buildings, different mayors voted to be in charge of the node, and different node racial aesthetics.
I think that they need to make it to where the taxes can't go too high. Because if you make it to where the taxes can just go super high, you're going to have like a group of people that have a lot of resources and a lot of power, and they're just going to rule over everybody else. And this is exactly what happened in New World, because in New World, the reigning like best guild was getting all of the money, right? And so now they're getting all the money so they can buy all the best gear, and they can buy all the best resources and consumables for the wars to defend the the location that allows them to make all the money. You see, so it's like it's a fucking snowball effect. It's a vicious circle, and I think that's problematic for sure, and that could happen. I'm worried about that. Yeah, sounds familiar. Well, the thing is, like, every avenue in life, like almost every single way that people exist together that can be judged in any way, shape, or form, numerically, like you can judge like one person versus the other person, it provides and creates massive disparities between people. Like, that's how it is. It doesn't matter if it's sports, like exercise, like making money, being successful, hooking up with girls. Like, it's like one guy is hooking up with 20 girls and one guy can't get a single one. Right? You see how this happens? And this is just something that manifests in humanity, because people are just fundamentally unequal. They're just not. It's not like everybody spawns with 40 talent points. Some people get 50, some people get 5. So the fact is that it's very important to make sure that you don't allow a small group or even a large group of players to actively ruin the experience of other people. And this is kind of what happened in New World because of the tax system. And it also had a self-perpetuating cycle and system to it, so it made it worse.
No other MMORPG has ever done this before, and we've already seen this system working up to the village stage in last year's Alpha 1 test.
Node politics, okay.
On top of the node system also lies the node political system, where players compete to become the node's mayor. The process of how this is done varies depending on the node type. Scientific node mayors are voted for democratically, militaristic node mayors are chosen by victory in a last man standing tournament, economic node leadership is sold to the highest bidder, and divine node governance is given to the player that completed the most node quests. Once a mayor has been decided, they can set the tax rate and to decide which building projects to pursue.
The
only way to remove a mayor is by...
You see how you can turn the tax rate all the way up to 100%? Because you can see, like, you know, this like little thing is at 10%, and it's going to go all the way up to 50. And like, especially if you have people that are starting the game off, they'll be at that town and you'll still make the most money. And like, so that's one thing that can happen. Also, with the military thing, like, so this is what would happen in the Warlords of Draenor Coliseum, is that people would queue up with like 5 of their friends, and then they would just like basically throw the game at the end to make the person that's their friend that they're like rotating around the wins with, make that person win the game. So I worry about that, especially with like, oh, it's a death match. It's like, well, yeah, but what if 2 people are in there and they're fighting together? You see, yeah, it's like win trading. Like, how do you deal with that? I don't know. But again, like, these are all... And like, the thing is, like, this stuff will happen. The reason why I'm thinking about all of this is because I would be the one doing it. Like, I would be doing this if I wasn't a streamer.
Destroying the node via the node siege mechanic. Bad mayors will exist. Yes, they will cause drama, and this is all by design, as any virtual world has good guys and bad guys. Some nodes will naturally die out, and
some drama is good, but if the drama is so... If there's like really no way of like pushing back against a large group of people playing the game, because like you just don't have enough people that are, you know, like organized or coordinated enough to form an opposition, it can become oppressive, and people can get bored and not want to play anymore.
Level due to an inactive mayor.
Has to be
Others will need to be taken out by force. Some mayors might tax their citizens so hard that everyone leaves and there's no money for upkeep. This is all intended with the design principle of actions having consequences.
Yep.
The final thing worth mentioning about nodes is the citizenship and player housing systems tied to it. Once a node reaches village stage or higher, player housing then becomes available. There's 3 types of player housing. Real space node housing, real space freeholds, which are basically plots of land within the node's zone of influence, and instance to node apartments. Players who have invested into any of these types of player housing can then register to become citizens of the node, which brings with it various benefits listed on screen. You can only become a citizen of one node at a time per account, so this is an important decision designed to make players want to invest in and defend their node. Nodes are not owned by guilds, and the more people that register for citizenship at a single node, the more expensive it becomes for future citizens to join.
Oh wow.
You will lose citizenship if your node is destroyed in a node siege. In addition, you will also lose your player housing and a portion of the resources stored in your node's warehouse.
So there's actually like a tremendous amount of loss in the game. You need a certain amount of loss in the game in order for you to just not have effectively like just like market saturation of resources. Because like a lot of these games are going to have more resources being used than, or sorry, more resources being generated than being used. And that's a bad thing.
So it's really in your best interest to defend and invest in the node that you're a citizen of.
Inflation, yeah, it's effectively item inflation.
Another completely unique thing Ashes of Creation is bringing to the MMO genre that has never been done before is its season technology.
Yeah, look at this. This is
This
badass.
was recently shown off and working in a dev live stream, but basically every 1 or 2 weeks, certain biomes will change seasons from spring, summer, autumn, or winter. In doing so, the appearance of monsters might change, there will be buffs or debuffs to your character, dungeon entrances or mountain passes might become frozen over or inaccessible, some gatherable resources might become unavailable during certain seasons, which might have an economic impact, and there will also be different weather effects depending on the season.
That's really cool. I hope that they do it by a monthly cycle. Like, you have the 4 seasons, I feel like cycle through them 3 times a year. Like, that in my mind makes the most sense. Monthly is good. Yeah, because if it's weekly, please? No, because if it's weekly, you want to have the idea of the person who stocks up on items in the winter to sell them in the summer 2 or 3 months later. You want to have that. And you can't have that if it's weekly. That's why I think that it has to be monthly. But I think that having it correspond with yearly, the same as like real life, I think that's too much.
This, coupled with the ever-changing node system, gives Ashes of Creation the potential to be the MMORPG that has the most interesting, immersive, and evolving world we've seen out of any MMO to date. You leave the game, log in a few weeks later, the node has changed, the season has changed, new events and quests have spawned. It'll feel like you've zoned into a completely new location. On the PvE side of things, something I find especially interesting with Ashes of Creation is how content such as dungeons and raids will have adaptive difficulty based on the performance of the party against previous bosses. So let's say your group absolutely steamrolls the first boss in a dungeon or raid. The next boss will then scale to be more difficult, unlocking additional mechanics, and as a result drop better loot. In addition, node development also has a big impact on PvE difficulty and content availability too. The higher the node level, the higher the level of mobs in the surrounding area.
I hope that the adaptive difficulty, obviously like this is what they've said is going to happen, is that like the adaptive difficulty functions on like multiple levels. But I think that if you really want something challenging, it has to be instanced. Like, that's just the reality. I think it has to be instanced. Because if you don't have that, you're going to have just all kinds of fucking griefing, like, bullshit. It's like the amount of like scaling mechanisms you have for difficulty are very limited because you can't use success of the mechanics as a metric because you can have people that can ruin that. So it's you have to have it be instanced. Like, I cannot see a universe where it's not instanced.
Perhaps there's a dungeon with
like I'm like, that is to make it super hard. I'm not saying this is a bad idea in the open world, but I think if you really want to create challenging, like the pinnacle challenging PvE content, has to exist in an instance.
5 bosses inside. However, the 4th and 5th boss rooms only become accessible once the node has developed to city or metropolis stage. Additional mechanics and higher loot potential could also be locked behind the leveling of nodes. Obviously, this will take a lot of balancing, but I like the direction they're going in when it comes to PvE difficulty. If they get it right, dungeons and raids could become infinitely difficult based on performance, which could also open up the potential for...
I like the idea of being able to beat something. I hope that it's not completely infinite.
Competitive PvE leaderboards, if there was some kind of performance rating added on top of this system. Although Ashes of Creation won't be the first MMO to introduce a caravan system, shout out to Silk Road Online, it's certainly not a common thing we've seen in any of the other top MMOs in recent years. I think the last MMO to have something like this was Arcade. Storage in Ashes of Creation is not global. Warehouses where you store your items will be local to each
creation. That's cool. I think that's fucking badass.
MMO to have
like you go and you attack a big ass fucking a big fucking caravan.
Like this was Arcade.
And you bust the shit open and it bursts open with all that person's shit. It's like a loot box, but it's a loot box of somebody else's loot. That's amazing. I love it.
Creation is not global.
Give me the loot.
Warehouses where you store your items will be local to each node, and gatherable resources for crafting will be more or less plentiful based on biome or region.
I'm not sure how that's going to go based on how it went with New World. I don't know. I am not like that worries me, but I think that everything we should, like, I haven't played the game, right? So like we have to play the game and see what it's really like. Like, I played the alpha, but, like, that was just, like, very limited.
This means that players will be able to take advantage of localized economies by transporting goods from one region to another.
Like, they could always do something... Sorry, I just keep pausing. I just have so many opinions about this. They could always do something like what Valheim does, where, like, Valheim
you can move a lot of resources through portals, but you can't move ore through portals. So you have to think about moving valuable resources like together, and like also you can't move like the motor eggs, for example, but everything else you can move through portals, because I feel like having to move everything on its own would be very frustrating. So I think that maybe that could be confined to only certain types of expensive or valuable items. And I think that would not hurt the caravan meta at all, because why would somebody want to attack a caravan that's just got a bunch of grass in it, right? So of course they're going to attack the ones that are very valuable. But we'll see what happens. They should look at Valheim
based on supply and demand. This is done through the caravan system. Let's say you're a citizen of a node located in the desert biome. People need a lot of wood for crafting, but it's hard to come by in the desert. You travel to the forest, spend a few hours collecting or buying wood from other players, then you want to transport it back to the desert to sell on for profit or use yourself. You can go to the storage at the forest node and spawn a personal...
Like, I would say, like, visually...
or use your...
Like, visually, this looks very appealing to me. I like the way this looks. This looks good.
Yourself. You can go to the storage at the forest node and spawn a personal caravan to then transport those goods. In doing so, the area around the caravan will become a moving open world PvP zone, in which players can choose to either attack or defend the caravan. There's incentives for either side. This is a risk versus reward system in which you could potentially lose your stuff if your caravan is successfully raided. The whole existence of the caravan system also opens up the possibility for players to become mercenaries and sell protection services to players wanting to transport their goods for coin, which is also pretty cool.
I think also, like, just giving players the ability to do stuff like that and then seeing what players do with it. Because, like, what would I do? So, like, clearly you can move your character around with whatever you need in your inventory. So there will be a lot of people who will just not use a caravan and just run themselves. So caravans will probably be used with, like, very, very large items. Like, let's say you craft, let's say like the helm of a battering ram, and like you can't keep that in your inventory, so you have to move that with a caravan, and it can only be moved with a caravan. I think that makes it very interesting. But whenever you're talking about like smaller items, and like obviously like so for example, you would move the helm of the battering ram around, and like that would clearly, there would be a vested interest in the people that helped form that in order to move that thing around. But I do think that a lot of people will probably just move it with, personal caravans will be very uncommon. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Monster coin events are a multiplayer horde defense activity that can take place at nodes. These events must be triggered by something significant happening in the surrounding area, such as node advancement, the death of a world boss, or constructing a certain building in the node. During a monster coin event, players must choose to either attack or defend. Attackers can use monster coins to transform into a monster and attack key objectives in the node, whilst defenders must defend against the attacking horde of monsters. Monster coin events cannot de-level a node, however they can kill important NPCs or disable buildings at the node for a while if the attackers are successful. Monster coins can be obtained via rare drops in-game, and the rewards for this activity are entirely cosmetic.
That's good. I like the idea of that. I think that's a really good idea, but I think that they need to make sure that whenever they do something like that, it is notifying the entire server. It's like you don't want to have like a big cool event like that happen, nobody knows about it. So like, for example, let's say there's like a lunar eclipse and everybody can look up in the sky. They're like, oh my God, it's a lunar eclipse. Now we've got, like, that means there's going to be a vampire attack, or there's going to be a werewolf attack or something like that. And you know that that's going to happen based off of the context of the weather. Or like, for example, let's say it's like really rainy and there's like, a 10% chance of it to be rainy one day and a 10% chance of it, whenever it's rainy, to have tornadoes. And if there are tornadoes, there's like pretty much 100% chance that something like Alakir will spawn, or like some sort of wind elemental or wind god that you're going to have to kill out in the open world that's a world boss. So like creating ways
Because like a notification on the middle of your screen that says, please proceed to node 17B for your mandatory fun encounter with Thundiran or with Ragnaros, I think that's stupid. But like, you want to give their, like, let's say there's a mountain or there's a volcano, and there's a chance, a 1% chance every day the volcano erupts. And the fucking volcano erupts, shit happens, the dragon flies out of the fucking volcano, you've got magma worms coming out of it too, that's attacking the city, and it's fucking awesome, right? And you put the volcano right next to a massive city, so everybody has a bigger vested interest in doing this. So you want to create ways that players can detect the changing of the world without using words. Without using words. Give people, like, you know, it's a blood moon, it's an eclipse, it's a volcano eruption, it's a rainstorm. You know, it's the same as like out in the open seas. Let's say there's a rainstorm out in the open seas. Well, there's got to be a sea serpent out there, obviously.
The final point I want to make when it comes to what makes Ashes of Creation so unique is the sheer scope of the game. When you combine all the features and innovations this game will have, it's...
That's the best thing about the game, and also the main thing that people are concerned about is that how can a game promise this many things and actually be able to deliver?
Surely gonna be the biggest fantasy MMO ever made to date. 9 different playable races, both with male and female options, 480 square kilometer world size at launch, fully open world game where you can go from one side of the map to the other, no loading screens, dungeons, raids, world bosses, open world PvP with a criminal system, caravan PvP.
Let's say it doesn't. Let's say it only does half. It's still, I still think that's incredible. And also, let's say it does half on release. That doesn't mean they can't add it later on. Like, oh, Castle Sieges aren't ready yet. It's not going to be ready for 6 months. Okay, that's fine. Like, I'm waiting to see. Like, yeah, let's just see what happens, man.
PvP, castle sieges, node sieges, arenas, duels, guild wars, crafting and artisan system, monster coin events, political system, citizenship, player-run shops, taverns with parlor games, top-tier character customization, transmog cosmetic collection, 64 different class combinations, 3 forms of player housing, both open world and instanced, achievements, leaderboards, gathering, questing, hybrid combat system, player-driven economy with localized storage, pets, massive guild system with guild halls, both land and water mounts, and 18 different biomes in the world. Every week or two the season changes, which makes zones feel completely different, and if all of that wasn't enough, something I often forget is that
I also think that they should have few servers but have them be absolutely massive. In my mind, I think a game like this actually could be interesting if there was a handful of different servers, as long as one of them didn't die and everybody didn't play on the same server. But I worry because like so much of this game is built around other people. So if you have a server that's not very populated, I think that the people that are playing on that server will have a tangibly worse experience. So like making sure that it's future-proofed for that, and also vice versa, future-proofed for overpopulation as well, because that's what happened with WoW, is that WoW, like the future-proofing that WoW has is layering. What is this game going to have? Is it going to need something? I think that honestly what they should do to future-proof is they should have things in their back pocket that they can do that will split up the player base. Like it will cause players to go to different locations on the map, so it doesn't look like everybody is all competing for the same resource. Well, servers going to be griefed 100%. Yeah, and that's what I worry about.
The game will have an entire arcade-style naval system where you can sail across the ocean on massive ships and partake in naval PvP and naval trade routes.
I'm so excited for that.
I probably forgot to mention a few features in that little ramble, but my point is, this game will be bloody huge. So huge that I can totally understand why people have been skeptical about the project since the inception.
Even the director, Steven, said that.
We have seen most of these things that I've mentioned at some point in development live streams in recent years, so it's definitely all stuff that's being worked on. The only content we haven't seen much of at this point is the naval aspect of the game, although recently we've been shown some 3D models for the ships, as well as a giant sea monster boss, so
badass.
Hopefully we'll see more of that soon. At this point you're probably saying, wow Peon, all of that sounds great, but I don't want to wait until 2030 to play this thing.
Too bad.
Hasn't the game been in development for years already? Yes, it has. But unfortunately, my MMO hungry friends, this is a genre where games take...
Just bring it out when it's ready. Like, that's how I see it. Just bring it out whenever it's ready, bring it out.
I think that not every single feature has to be 100% complete on release. Like, you can have things that you hold back because they're just not completely done yet, and you know that's the nature of a live service game, is that the game is never in a finished state. But I do think that after New World, they need to make sure that the game is at least released and all of the features in game are complete. Like, no incomplete features, no bad systems. And, you know, you can hold back and not have certain systems, sure, but make sure that everything that is in the game is not garbage.
A long ass time to make. ESO, Lost Ark and Arcade, for example, all took over 7 years of development until launch. Final Fantasy XIV was in development for 9 years before A Realm Reborn released.
Yeah.
Right now, Ashes of Creation is about 5.5 years into development.
I would say that we should expect to see a beta of Ashes of Creation that we can play regularly within 1.5 years. I think that's kind of fair. Given what's happened, I think 1.5 years, probably, yeah, 2024. I would be surprised if the game didn't release in 2024 or 2025.
And with it being a particularly ambitious project, I still think we've got a while to wait. That being said, since moving to Unreal Engine 5, their development speed seems to have gone through the roof, with significant progress shown every live stream.
Well, obviously it has, because a lot of the game is probably conceptualizing and then designing the ideas behind it, and then programming it probably will take a tremendous amount of time, but that's something that they can do that, you know, like, they're not showing the entire world programmed, right? They're just showing one zone. So I think it makes sense that they're progressing it faster. Also, obviously, with people like Lazy Peon, myself, Narc, you know, Rich is talking, you know, like McConnell, right? Everybody that's like in the MMO space, Shroud, Summit, like all of these guys talking about the game do give it a tremendous amount of promotion, and some of those people that see the game through our streams contribute to it and support it, and so I think that does increase the speed of it too. Josh Stripe, yeah, of course.
So maybe it's closer than we think.
The other stuff.
So far, I've only explained the unique aspects of Ashes of Creation, the things it's doing to push the genre forward.
Yeah.
But the game also has a lot of other features that you're likely familiar with from other MMOs. So next I'm going to break down everything the game has into the following categories: PvE content, PvP content, roleplay content, the worlds, professions, class and combat system.
Roleplay content, I think, is so important. Like New World, one of the reasons why I think New World is not successful is because the roleplay content in the game is mediocre. It's just not very good. Like Final Fantasy, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, is so good with its roleplay content that I think it carries the game entirely.
As this is such a colossal game with so many different aspects to it, it's impossible for me to talk about every feature in depth and answer every question you might have. Thankfully, there's a fantastic resource already available called the Ashes of Creation Wiki that's constantly being updated and has thousands of pages worth of information.
I didn't know about
Any
this at all.
specific questions you might have, check the wiki and there's a 99% chance you'll get an answer. Shout out to Lex, who's been keeping this up to date over the years.
That's tremendous.
The PvE content in Ashes looks a little bit like this. Content is tailored for group sizes of 40, 16 and 8 player groups. The maximum size of a party is 8 players. Dungeons are designed for these 8 player parties. 20% of dungeon and raid content is instanced, whilst 80% are open world. Raids and dungeons are designed for group sizes of either 16 or 40 players, and raids and dungeons both use the adaptive difficulty system that I spoke about earlier in this video.
The only problem that I have is what happens whenever you bring 50 or 60 or 100. Like, how is bringing 70 people to a raid not the solution to not being able to kill the boss? And like, well, then it just randomly kills, like, let's say 30 people, right? It just instantly kills 30 people or anybody else who engages or whatever. Well, okay, then you're gonna grief people with that. It's very complex to do something like this. It said max 40. Yeah, but in open world content, how are you gonna put max 40 people? You're gonna put a wall up so more people can't get in? What if somebody gets in inside of a raid and there's, you know, 3 people inside that aren't part of the guild and they're just there to grief the guild, and then there's 3 healers that can't get inside? You see what I'm saying? Like, like, again, the way that I do everything is I reverse engineer how can I troll somebody with this, and then I figure out how to solve that problem. People will find
Ashes
ways
of Creation will have many world bosses designed to be contested by large groups.
We were the ones, me and Jeff were the ones that would grief people's Kazakh kills in BC. It was me and Jeff. Primarily Jeff.
Groups of players and guilds. These world bosses will have a chance to drop legendary equipment and a tiny chance to drop eggs that can hatch into non-permanent limited time flying mounts.
That's badass.
Due to how they're designed, world bosses are also likely to attract open world PvP with multiple guilds fighting for the glory of the boss kill and loot. Monster Coin events are another PvEVP event that I spoke about previously. These horde defense style events are likely to spawn following the leveling of a node or a world boss being killed. Quests are another form of PvE content, and they come in multiple forms. Events, tasks, narrative quests, daily quests, epic and legendary quests, racial quests, class quests, and caravan quests. Jumping puzzles will also be another fun aspect of PvE in Ashes of Creation.
I love this.
You'll encounter them whilst questing and exploring dungeons. There was already...
Like, yeah, stuff like this in like every game is amazing. Like, I don't know how many people told me about, like, there's a new Final Fantasy jumping quest. There's also a jumping thing, like the Kugain Tower was like, people were like, fucking, you have to do this, right? And yeah, Guild Wars 2, like, I've heard is one of the best games for this.
Already a few of these present in the game during the Alpha 1 test in 2021.
PvP, alright.
Next, PvP content, and yes, there's a lot of it. First,
The only PvP content that I really care about is sieges. Like, any small-scale PvP, I feel like is never going to be as good as an actual PvP game. It's interesting, it's dynamic, it's cool, but I primarily care about PvP games for that kind of stuff.
Discuss the open world PvP flagging system, otherwise referred to as the corruption system. In most cases, if killed by another player, the only things dropped upon death are gatherable and crafting materials.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's 3 states a player can be in: green, non-combatant; purple, combatant; and red, corrupted.
Oh my god.
Each player starts out as green unless they attack or fight back with another player, at which point they'll turn purple. Green non-combatant players who don't want to engage in PvP are still incentivized to at least run away or fight back.
No, I understand that might have looked complicated. It does not. It's completely logical if you actually looked at the chart. Like, you could have guessed what would have happened without even looking at it.
As being killed as a green player will result in dropping gatherable and crafting mats at twice the rate of if they'd have died whilst purple, aka fighting back. Purple indicates a state of consensual PvP. You're actually rewarded by dropping less gatherable mats on death if you die in this state. If a purple player kills a green player, then they become red, corrupted. Corrupted players are criminals and will face increasing penalties the more green players they kill, such as dampening and even dropping their gear upon death. If you're a green, pure PvE player, you'd have to make someone pretty mad whilst gathering for them to want to turn red on you. If you haven't got any droppable crafting or gathering mats, there's absolutely no benefit for someone to flag and kill you. So don't worry about people standing outside of nodes just spawn killing PvE players. Most of the time it won't be worth it. If that is something you're worried about though, a bounty hunter system will also exist where bounty hunters can hunt down corrupted players for rewards.
The bounty hunter!
Node sieges and castle sieges.
I think that stuff is pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how it's going to go. I can see it going really well, and I can see it going really not well.
These are two different things. A node siege is where players band together to destroy a node, resetting its level to allow adjacent nodes to progress to higher stages. The higher the level of the node, the more work is required to fulfill the prerequisites to declare the siege. Any player can declare a node siege, and once declared, a countdown begins, giving players anywhere between 2 to 5 days notice, depending on the level of the node, to prepare for the impending battle. Players cannot transport goods from their warehouse during this time, and many services in the node will also be disabled until the outcome of the siege is decided.
So you
Castle
lock people
sieges
in there.
are massive large...
That's smart, because like if you don't lock them in there, then they'll just move all their stuff away and it won't matter as much to them the outcome of the siege.
Scale 250 versus 250 player
it has
battles
to
for
be like
guilds that occur once per month. There will be a total of 5 castles in the world. Castle sieges will have multiple objectives for both attackers and defenders, and might also include raid bosses that attackers can slay for certain buffs. These battles will include siege weapons such as catapults, trebuchets, cannons, and ballistas, and there will be a great deal of prestige and rewards for guilds that manage to own one of the 5 castles in the world.
Look at that.
Guilds can declare war on each other via the guild war system. Once a war has been declared, players in those guilds can kill each other without penalties. Guild wars will have victory and surrender conditions, with guild war objectives spawning during the server's prime time. When it comes to battlegrounds, Ashes of Creation will not have traditional MMOBGs where you can queue and are teleported to an instance. However,
I think that's probably okay. It just depends on what happens as time goes on. You know, like if there's a demand for something like Warsong Gulch or some equivalent of that, then I think why not?
The game will have a gladiator-style last man standing arena where players can battle to become the mayor of militaristic nodes. Caravan PvP is something I spoke about earlier and will be a big catalyst for PvP in the open world, and the game will have instanced arenas for 1v1, 3v3 and 5v5 player group sizes, as well as the ability for players to duel each other for fun. Role players rejoice because Ashes of Creation certainly hasn't forgotten about you. In fact, quite the opposite. This could be one of the most RP-friendly MMOs ever made.
It's going to be hard to beat Final Fantasy, especially with the, you know, cat girls. I mean, like, I don't know about this.
First off, the game will have 9 different playable races,
like anime
no gender
cat
or race-locked classes, each of which have their own architectural influence on the nodes they contribute the most XP to. You've got the Kalar and Valoon humans, the Dunir and Nakua dwarves, the Renkai and Vek orcs, Empyrean and Pyre elves, and the recently revealed Tulnar. Earlier this year, Intrepid revealed to us their top-tier character customization suite, which, although
I think the character customizer is S tier. I absolutely think so. I really, really like it a lot.
The time wasn't completely finished, was already up there as being one of the most in-depth in the MMO genre, right up there with Black Desert's character creator. But what's a good character creator without a good fashion and transmog system, right? In this game you'll be able to collect appearances of weapons, armor and accessories and apply it to what you've currently got equipped, similar to WoW's transmog system or Guild Wars 2's wardrobe system. You will also be able to dye your gear. Additionally, those monthly cosmetic packs you've probably heard people complaining about in the past will be one-piece outfits, similar to how it works in Guild Wars 2. You won't be able to mix and match armor components from these full costumes, meaning the most...
That's probably a good thing, because that means that people will feel like they don't have to get them if they don't like the entire set. Like, that's definitely a good thing. because that way, like, for example, like if let's say there's one really, really cool chess piece, but you don't like the helmet, well, then you don't have to get it, right? You don't feel like, oh, I need to get this to finish this set that I have in my mind. Yeah, it's smart. Yeah, that actually makes me, like, that's a really smart thing I never really even thought of until right now, and the fact that they already considered that is very reassuring.
Unique transmog combinations won't be something you can just buy from the cosmetic shop. We've already touched on player housing earlier in this video, but to reiterate, they come in 3 types. Instance departments within nodes that anyone can gain access to for citizenship, real space in-node housing that level up with the node, and real space freeholds, which are set-size plots of land located within a node's area of influence.
Yeah, that's cool.
You'll be able to decorate your player housing with furniture, craft and process materials at your freehold, and obviously throw kinky ERP parties in your house with other players, which, let's be honest, is 90% of the reason why people RP in MMOs.
Right,
Situated inside nodes or freeholds, taverns are buildings that act as a social hub for players to relax, roleplay, buy consumables, play music.
I think like having a tavern, you know, like in WoW, how like you're in a city, and in the city you you gain rested experience. I think it'd be really cool if you gained rested experience and you would gain like 25% faster rested experience inside of the tavern of the city. That way it would get more people to be going in there naturally. Like New World has taverns, and I've never seen a person in the tavern of New World. And the unfortunate reality is like the taverns are actually very cozy. They look incredible, but there's just simply no reason to go in there.
Gain rested XP by renting a room, or partake in parlor games together.
That's a good idea.
It's also possible that proximity voice chat will be enabled inside of taverns, although this will require some testing. When it comes to emotes, Ashes of Creation will have all the standard animations you'd expect in an MMORPG, as well as consensual multiplayer emotes such as dancing and hugging. Additionally, you'll be able to interact with the environment by leaning on walls, sitting down, vaulting over fences, mantling, and crouching. As previously mentioned, Ashes of Creation will have a political system where players can compete to become the mayor of the node in numerous ways.
That's cool.
From this, good mayors and bad mayors will emerge, which in itself is another aspect of roleplay. And finally, yes, marriage, including same-sex marriages, will be a thing in Ashes of Creation. Marriage will...
I don't see why not. I mean, the thing is, like, that's good to me. Like, I'm down about that. Oh, Lord. I mean, yeah, why the fuck not? Is like, let's say humans are like, you know, like, what? How do you know elves aren't like normally gay? You know, because like, wouldn't it make sense that like there wouldn't be a lot of like, because like if you can't reproduce with the person of the same sex, right? Wouldn't it make sense that a lot more of them, there wouldn't be as many of them that could do that? You see what I'm saying? That's a fair point. Yeah, it actually logically it makes sense. Like you could make like more of the of like a race that would be like non-reproducing. Why not? Yeah, sure, why not? It's a fantasy game. That's stupid? No, it's not. It makes sense. They're immortal. If you had them reproducing constantly, they would fucking there'd be overpopulation. See, you got to think.
Allow player housing permissions to be shared, and a quest might appear related to a marriage ceremony. This system isn't 100% fleshed out as of making this video, but it will be in the game in one form or another.
Yeah, that's the world.
Next, let's discuss the world of Ashes of Creation, starting with server size, which Intrepid are aiming to support 8,000 to 10,000 concurrent players online at one time, 5 times the number of players that New World's servers can currently handle.
Wait, I wasn't paying attention.
Aiming to support 8,000 to 10,000 concurrent players online at one time.
2,000 is the max in New World. I think that might actually still be too little. I don't know yet.
5 times the number of players that New World's servers can currently handle. When it comes to server locations, the most recent info I could find is that they plan on having servers for the following regions: North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Australia.
Okay.
However, other server regions such as South America are under consideration. Stephen, if you're watching this video, please heavily consider adding Southeast Asia servers. So many people here love MMOs that we have to get wrecked by 150 to 200 ping connecting to Australia.
Yeah.
I'm sure the same could be said for South America connecting to NA2. You're making the most highly anticipated MMO globally, and after all these years of development and anticipation, it'd be a big shame if large regions of people couldn't enjoy it to its fullest due to ping and server regions.
Yeah, it's definitely
As previously
true.
mentioned, the world in Ashes will be 480 kilometers squared at launch, which includes land and water, with an additional 100 kilometers squared for the Underrealm. The world will be ever changing thanks to the node system and seasons, but I've already gone in depth on those systems at the start of this video, so best not to repeat myself further. When it comes to fast travel and flying mounts, the world of Ashes is designed so that distance and scale matters. Fast travel will be limited to the superpower of a scientific node at Metropolis level.
Yeah, it's like a wizard
allowing
node or
players
some
to
shit.
teleport to smaller nodes within the Metropolis zone of influence, and a family summon with a long cast time that can be used on up to 8 family members. Flying mounts will be
I think allowing groups to summon around in the world is probably a better thing than not. But, like, I think it's, again, something that this could be something that ends up being a barrier to playing with other people that just ends up being annoying. So I don't think that they should hold on to that if it ends up being something that's unpleasant or it causes people more friction.
Extremely rare.
Yeah, you don't want to have like
limited
what
in
happened with
duration,
New World happen.
with them being obtained via legendary drop eggs from world bosses, or obtainable to mayors of Metropolis nodes, as well as guild leaders owning one of the 5 castles in-game. Out of 10,000 players per server, there's likely to only be between 10 and 15 players who have access to flying mounts at a time. This game isn't designed around flying. If you ever get to experience it, then it's a great achievement or you've been extremely lucky. For the most part, you'll travel around...
I think that they should have it where, like, you can get a flying mount from effectively, like, think of it like WoW, like, think of it like Proto-Drakes and Wrath. Like, you could get a Proto-Drake just from getting really fucking lucky and seeing the Time Lost Proto-Drake, or getting the egg out of the Oracle's egg, right? And you get the green one. Or you could get the black Proto-Drake from doing Immortal, or something like that. And I think also... There's no reason that, like, you have to have either or. You should be able to have, like, maybe some mounts, like, let's say, like there are animals. I think sugar gliders are one of them that, like, they can fly temporarily, or like a chicken, for example. Like, if you had a chicken mount that can fly a little bit, but not a lot. So I don't think that there should just be 2 distinctions. There should be mounts that can sometimes fly a little bit, but not all the time, like a griffin or a dragon.
The world via ground mounts, water mounts, or ships if you wish to traverse the Great Ocean. As I previously mentioned, Ashes will have a fully explorable ocean similar to Arcade. There will be coastal nodes, harbours, naval caravans, treasure hunting, underwater dungeons, naval quests, naval PvP, and multiple different ship sizes ranging from small, medium, and large. Similar to Arcade,
I want to have a giant fucking dreadnought ship. Like this massive fucking, like it's basically a castle on the sea, and there's like cannons that are out of it, like a fucking fight against a kraken out in the open world.
Also be giant sea monster world bosses, like the Negalith, which was recently teased and should be present in Alpha 2. Lore and story is definitely something that's present in Ashes of Creation, however it's not one of those MMOs where you're the chosen one, hero of light, center of the universe, god of all things, with NPCs worshipping you upon sight because you followed the same linear story as millions before you. Storytelling will be more...
I think that either one of those are good. Like, I used to think that it was only good if you were an adventurer. But I think that, like, Final Fantasy and also Lost Ark to a lesser extent, like, taught me that, like, you can actually have a game where your character is the main character in the game that's an MMO, and you just have to have a certain level of suspension of disbelief whenever you're playing with other people. However, I don't think that one is inherently better than the other. It just depends on how they're designed.
Based on learning about past events in the lore, self-contained short story quests, and the overarching story of the world's development. This game actually has a ton of lore, with a lot of stuff being kept secret for launch, but you can read more about that stuff on the wiki, as this video is starting to get pretty long as it is.
I hope they approach the lore in the game similar to kind of how Dark Souls and Elden Ring and Bloodborne approaches lore,
where like the lore is there and it's very deep, but you don't really have to deal with it unless you want to. It's kind of like how in WoW, like most people play WoW, like they don't know like a lot of the lore at all. And I think like earning and like learning the lore on your own, I think makes it more compelling and interesting, because it's something that like effectively like it's your discovery.
The artisan class and profession system in Ashes looks something like this. You've got 3 artisan classes: gathering, processing, or crafting.
Makes sense.
Each of which contain various professions. Gathering professions include farming, fishing, herbalism, lumberjacking, mining, and taming. Processing professions include...
I think you should be able to cut down any tree in the game. You should be able to cut it down. It doesn't matter how big it is or what kind of tree it is. You should be able to cut it down one way or another. Every single tree.
Husbandry and smelting, and crafting professions include alchemy, armor smithing,
even the big ones,
caravan building, carpentry, cooking, jewel crafting, scribes, shipbuilding, siege weapons, and weaponsmithing. A character may only master up to a maximum of 2 professions within one artisan class. So let's say you choose to be a gatherer. You could max out mining and lumberjacking, but you could not max out mining and alchemy. If you're a crafter, you could choose to max out cooking and jewel crafting, but you could not max out cooking and smelting. To get around this limitation, you may use alts or join guilds and work together to fulfill your crafting needs. The most unique profession in Ashes of Creation has to be animal husbandry, in which you can breed different animals together to create weird and wonderful hybrid mounts, like this wonderful half-griffin, half-butterfly raccoon monstrosity.
Bro, somebody just went crazy with that.
Finally, let's discuss what for many people is the most important thing about Ashes of Creation: the combat and class system. Ashes of Creation will have a hybrid combat system similar to Guild Wars 2.
Combat for me is the most important part of the game. If combat's good, the game's good, and I'll play it. If combat's bad, the game's bad, and I probably won't play it that much. It's that simple. Combat and gameplay.
Previous videos, I couldn't really show you what this combat would look like, but recently they've made substantial progress and shown off some basic melee weapon attacks, and boy, does it look a hell of a lot better than the combat the game had in past tests. As this system is in the middle of a full redesign, and we haven't even had the chance to see a lot of the redesigned abilities yet.
Looks better. Yeah, and like again, I think that really, and this is what Steven said in the time that this got announced and it was shown, is what you really should judge this off of is like the last alpha versus this. And this is 5x better than the last one. Like it's like, it's way, way better. I don't think this is a finished product, but I think that it is tremendously better. It is insane progress.
I'm not going to talk too in depth on it, but basically when it's done, expect Guild Wars 2 combat, but better. Some abilities need to be targeted, whilst others are AoE telegraph and frontal cone attacks.
That's smart.
You'll be able to dodge, blink, and iframe depending on your class. A lot of effort is going into audio-visual feedback, and as you can see by the damage numbers, they're going with something that looks very vanilla WoW, which I personally love.
Vanilla WoW has the best numbers of any game. I think Lost Ark is equivalent.
Keep an eye out for more updates on this system over the next few months, but so far the new design direction is looking very good.
He said that you can change it.
When it comes to classes, Ashes of Creation is using a similar system to Arcade, but instead of a possible 220 classes, there's 64 different possible class combos in Ashes.
Yeah.
The way this works is you've got 8 primary classes: Bard, Cleric, Fighter, Mage, Ranger, Rogue, Summoner, and Tank. You can then choose a secondary class out of the same 8 options to determine your overall class. If your primary class is Fighter and your second class is also Fighter, you'd be a Weapon Master, for example.
So like I'll probably be like a Dreadnought or a Weapon Master. McConnell's probably going to be a High Sword, maybe a Paladin, but I'm probably not. And like you guys can see how this works. I think this is really cool. And like you have combos here like Necromancer, Warlock, Scion, Apostle, Siren. Like this kind of stuff is really cool.
Primary, Summoner Secondary would be Warlock. Summoner Primary, Mage Secondary would be Spellmancer. You get the idea. When it comes to leveling, the level cap at launch will be level 50, and it's intended to take roughly 45 days of playing 4 to 6 hours per day to reach max level. At each level, you'll receive various rewards, from skill points to new quest unlocks and other stuff to make leveling feel rewarding.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, congratulations.
No, the odds are, like, for a lot of people, like, think of it like this. Most people, it takes them, like, probably, like, 5 to 10, I'd say 7 to 10 days to get max level in WoW. Every expansion. And how do we do it? Well, we get it on the first day. And so, like, yeah, we're going to be way more efficient with this. We're going to probably get max level first reset. Maybe second reset. Now, like, obviously, like, what is leveling going to be? It's going to probably be me, S and McConnell, maybe Miz, like Rich, like sitting in Discord leveling, right? And like probably bring in some of like our friends from like games, and like we just play together and level up. So like I'm not trying, like, I don't want to go and like force level as fast as humanly possible, but I do want to be very efficient. Like I don't want to waste a lot of time. I want to get to max level.
You've just been absolutely battered with information, and my
64,
brain is starting to shut down from the sheer amount of research and writing that's gone into this video. It's been 5 years since my first Ashes of Creation vid back in 2017, and the footage of the game back then compared to now is completely unrecognizable. Intrepid Studios has grown to a team size of over 150 developers, attracting some of the best MMO talent from North America, and since
I think that a lot of people now, especially after seeing the promise that the game has shown, are going to be more likely to like try to invest into the game. I think also, like, I'm going to play the game pretty hardcore at the beginning, but like my focus will always be, and has always been, the quality of the stream. So like if I feel like the stream would be better if I leveled slower, then I will do that. If I think the stream would be better if I just got to max level and I did the max level content, then I would do that. I will do whatever is best for the stream.
Upgrade to Unreal Engine 5, they've been absolutely pumping out substantial progress with every dev livestream. Yeah. Some might say that I shouldn't hype this game so much, and it's still just a pipe dream, but honestly, I think
it's clearly not a pipe dream. I mean, they're developing the game, they have been developing the game, they give monthly updates. The monthly updates show tremendous progress. Everything about the game looks promising and good. Does it mean it's going to be good? No, but everything about the game so far looks promising and good.
Nothing wrong with getting excited for a new MMO, especially in a genre that's been so full of disappointment for so many years. The excitement, anticipation, and speculation of a new MMO is almost as fun as playing it at this point, but hey,
it's more
maybe
fun.
You could say I'm high on copium.
What the hell is this?
No, my God.
Sir, there's a massive spike in the copium levels. What do we do?
Yes, I felt it.
No way.
Initiate Operation Hopium.
But that's it for this video, guys. This one took a ton of work to make.
That's
so
really
please help
good.
Me out by leaving a
Holy
comment,
shit, we gotta watch
that
some
like
of his
button
videos
for the algorithm gods. And if you plan on playing Ashes anyway, signing up for the game using my referral code. Let me know your thoughts on Ashes of Creation in the comments below. And have you changed your mind on the project in recent years as more stuff has been shown? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I gotta see this real quick. Where is it? Where the fuck is it? Where is he? What's the fucking chart of everybody? I gotta find this chart. Asmongold, Kira TV, Summit, Addicted, Quinn 89, Clown, Josh Strife Hayes, Immune. Yeah, true. I mean, look, I'm excited. I am. I'm very excited about the game. Like, true. And I think this video is great. I mean, like, huge shout out to Lazy Peon.
Like, he put this together. He's done, like, he was, I think, the one who introduced me to Ashes of Creation as a game. And so, huge shout out to him. I think his content's fucking great. I watch a lot of his videos, so make sure to give him a sub, give him a like, and give him some support. We're going to continue watching them, too. They're fucking amazing. So, yeah, I mean, there it is. Literally everyone, yeah, this guy does great. I know that, yeah, Clown69, yeah. As a game, yeah, I've been subscribed to him for years. Yeah, so have I. I've known the guy ever since he was like, he had like 20, you know, I knew this guy whenever he had like 10K or 20K subs, because like he made WoW videos and so did I. And I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty funny, right? And then he moved out and he like did other games, and it was like, you know, always like a rocky transition. And like, it's great to see like where he's at now. And, you know, he makes videos about like MMOs, and he has like a pretty broad, you know, content, like possibility of like what he can do. And the videos he does are great. And so I think this is awesome, man. It absolutely is. So I'm really excited about Ashes of Creation in general. I hope that it's great. I don't know if it will be, but I hope that it's fucking great. I have a show that I'm going to be on. I don't know if I'm going to just like stream my POV on the show or like just be on the show only. I'm going to be on Rich's show. And give me a second. Let me see what's going on with that. Stream